Let's talk about those battleground states because, as you and I have talked about now for months, this race is coming down to those 7 key swing states. When you look at the battleground voters, what numbers are you seeing?
Well, I just want to preface by saying that we capture in our regular polling a subset of voters that are from battleground states. Namely, it's the 8 key states that are actually quite competitive: Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada. In our poll, we've captured about 325 voters from these battleground states. And depending on how you look at the horse race, Trump is leading by as much as 7 to 8 points when you look at the two-way horse race. It closes a little bit when you look at the four-way horse race. So again, Trump v. Harris v. Cornel West v. Jill Stein. So it closes to about 3 points advantage for Trump, 48 to 45 in the four-way. And when you factor in those leaners, it grows slightly to about 4 points advantage. I think if you take the more conservative of these views, right, Trump has the edge with battleground voters, and that's concerning for the Harris campaign, or it should be concerning for the Harris campaign. Nevertheless, this edge that Trump has in the battleground states and with these battleground voters that you see in a lot of the public polling that's out there is counterbalanced by the fact that Harris is winning the early vote. And amongst that 8.5% of voters who have already cast their ballots, so roughly 8.5% of registered voters, or close to about 18 million voters, have already cast their ballots as of today. Harris really has a 2-to-1 advantage with those early voters. And roughly about 60% of the votes that are being cast for her, and about a third of the vote, or 33%, is being cast for Trump. So a dynamic type of a situation. And again, depending on how you look at it, you see some positives for Harris, in this case, namely the early vote, but you see some positives for Trump too, which is the edge in the battleground state and the fact that the polls are starting to shift in his direction now.
I know you said that this is going to be a razor thin election, but when you break it down by demo, you really see certain groups moving to one candidate, certain groups flocking to another one. Can you break it down by demographic, and what are you seeing there?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. Well, look, I mean, we see a clear advantage for Harris with young voters, the 18 to 29 demographic. She's leading by about 10 points, plus or minus, depending on how you look at it, with that demographic. Interestingly enough, Trump is leading with millennial voters, and millennial to, let's say, young Gen Xers, that 30 to 45-year-old demographic. He's got about a 5, 6 point advantage, depending on how you look at it. And that's a very interesting development, right? Especially, younger voters are expected to break more Democratic, but really, these millennials who are now household heads and or have young families, they're voting on economics, and the vote is breaking in Trump's favor. Moving on to race and ethnicity, Harris has about a 20-point advantage with Hispanics, depending on how you look at the horse race. If you factor in everything, if you look at the four-way horse race, if you factor in early voters, she's picking up about 55% of the vote for Hispanics, and he's picking up about 35% of the vote for Hispanics. So he's doing quite well, Trump, and also he's doing quite well with the black vote. If viewers remember, in 2020, President Biden captured about 90% of the black vote. Today, Vice President Harris is capturing about 70% of the black vote, and about 20% of that vote to 22% is going to Trump. So Trump has doubled his share of African Americans and those votes, and is doing quite well. And then obviously with the white vote, as expected, Trump has a lead. It's about 14 to 15 points based on how you're looking at it. So you see sort of an interesting picture in the demographics, and I would say that really the swing vote and the undecided vote is, more than not amongst Hispanic voters and amongst younger voters. There's 18% of voters who say they still might change their mind. That's the swing vote, and they tend to skew very heavily 40-year-old and younger. And also, Hispanic voters tend to be more than not kind of on the fence. They tend to be a lot more undecided than sort of that 8% average, and roughly by a factor of double. So there's still enough swing voters and undecided voters there that this could all shift.